Everyone, in this week's study group for the Sales Cloud Consultant exam, we hit a couple really tough topics, and that is territory management, multi-currency, and products. This is all part of the application, or your knowledge of the application itself. It's a lot of the exam from a weighted percentage standpoint. So these are really good topics to know. They're also topics that you don't get into very often. So spin up a sandbox, spin up a dev org, try these things out, make sure you're comfortable with them before you sit for the exam, and watch the video, of course. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming for today. Our topics for today: territory management, products, and multi-currency. And Kelly, I'm going to let you lead us off with products. So
perfect. Sounds
go ahead
good.
when you're ready.
I kept this a little short and sweet just because I saw the other topics that were on the board today. But this hopefully is a pretty good overview. All right. So my prompt was that we should be able to articulate the capability, use cases, and design considerations when implementing opportunity products, price books, and orders. So that's what we're going to cover today. Okay, so first we have products. Products are just, in English, the items and services that you sell to customers. Each product may or may not be sold with different prices via price books. So, you might be selling into different geographies, like different countries, or maybe you want to sell different prices to your partners versus net new customers. So we can establish price books for our different products. We'll talk about that more later. Products can also be related to opportunities, right? Because we actually want to sell these. So we can indicate that the opportunity is for either one product or a group of products specifically. So new products can be created in the Salesforce UI by either clicking new on the product homepage or by cloning an existing product. So that's not attaching a product to an opportunity, but creating a net new offering, a new product in your system. So before a price book can be related to a product, so before we can actually give it a listing of prices, each product must have an active standard price. So you can see here in my product, before I can create a new price book, Salesforce is going to prompt me and tell me, hey, you need to basically add what your default standard price is going to be. And then I didn't dive too much into this, but it is linked in the resources. Products can also be assigned a product schedule. So that's adding timeframes onto your products to define when a product will be delivered and when it will be paid for. So that's product delivery and then revenue schedules. Okay, I'll keep rolling along. All right, so let's talk more about how products can be related specifically to opportunities. So this is important because we want to track what's selling in what quantity, and we can do that by adding the products to our opportunities. So when you actually go ahead and add these, it creates a record that's technically called an opportunity line item, and you can see each one of those under the products related list on your opportunity. The sales price of the product will default to the list price that's defined in the price book. So basically, each product will have a sales price. You can see that's located here. It'll have a total price, which is the quantity multiplied by the sales price. And you can allow your users to override that, but the default is going to be defined by whatever is in the price book itself. We can also add discounts to each product if the discount field on the opportunity line items is enabled. And then the really cool thing about this is that the product sales prices will actually automatically reflect in the amount field on the opportunity so that your users don't have to go through every time the opportunity changes and update this amount field. They can edit it by just simply adding or deleting or editing the products that are within the opportunity, and that amount field will reflect those changes. All right, let's talk about price books. So price books are lists of products and their prices. So we've got two different types. The first one is a standard price book. So that's the list of all the products with their standard prices. And we defined that earlier. And then there's also a checkbox here that just says is standard price book. And then we can also say, we can also have custom price books. So this is useful, like the example that I gave before of if you're selling to different geographies and you want a different price book for North America versus EMEA versus APAC. A price book entry is a product once its price is defined with one of the price books with a currency. So basically, we're creating a record that's called a price book entry. Once we actually add a product with a price book and those two things are combined, it's called an entry. So price book entries are considered standard if we're using one of the standard prices. Otherwise, it's considered custom. And then when a user creates a new product, Salesforce will automatically create a standard price book entry. If a custom price book should be used instead, the user can just go in and mark the standard price book entry as inactive. So basically, when you create a new entry, Salesforce will automatically make one of these records for you. It'll be, if you don't want to use the one that Salesforce automatically made, you can just unclick the active checkbox and make sure, and then create your new record on top of that. Okay. Let's move on to orders. So an order is an agreement between a company and a customer to provision services or deliver products with a known quantity, price, and date. So orders can be configured to either be associated to contracts or accounts or both. So in the screenshot, you can see that it's related to an account, but it also has a contract relationship as well. An order product is a product or service that's provided to a customer according to an associated order. So you can see there's a related list here with order products on it. This is really similar to opportunity line items, but instead of relating our products to an opportunity, we're relating products to an order instead. They'll also have this associated price book, so super similar to our opportunity products. There's a different type of orders that are called reduction orders, and those are used to basically negate orders that have taken place or were previously created. So they can return a product, refund a service, or otherwise reduce the contract. And those do have to be enabled first. Okay, so this is where I got all my great information from. Does anybody have any questions?
Nice job. There's a couple of things there that I would make sure that you're somewhat familiar with, and that's the product schedule. You did bring that up in your slide. That's an important concept. That's also one that has to be enabled if you've not played with it and aren't familiar with that process. That'd be another good one to spin up in a sandbox and be comfortable with the way that works. That in essence, when you add your line item to your opportunity, you have the ability to schedule out the actual delivery of those services. So I'm glad you brought that one up. That was awesome. The other one that I would probably get somewhat familiar with is quotes. They basically hang off of your opportunity. They work just like an opportunity does. And except for it, you could have multiple quotes related to your opportunity. So I'm selling Julie, or I'm going to quote Julie for a Nissan whatever, and I'm going to quote her for a Toyota car, and she gets to choose which one she wants. I have two quotes, each with a price on it. Julie says, yeah, I want to go with the Nissan. Then on my quote, there's a sync button that will automatically take all of the information from that quote and put it up on my opportunity. So that I know that I quoted her two cars, and I know that she chose ultimately the one. So play around with quotes too a little bit in a sandbox. If you're not familiar with that topic, that'd be a good one to be familiar with too. Discounts. Be familiar with the fact that discounts are on products. It's not on the opportunity. That one will throw you, and I'd be shocked if that's not an exam question. So remember that discounting is at the line item level, not at the opportunity level. Other than that, very nice job. Very good. And next we have Joyce with multi-currency. Are you ready? And you're muted, Joyce.
I should unmute, and let me go ahead and share my screen.
And
Let me
we
know
see
if
your
you don't see
slides.
that. So my section is on the application of product knowledge. It's 18%, and this is multi-currency. This is to describe the implementation considerations of multi-currency and advanced currency management. So what is multi-currency? It allows a company to share or show amounts in different currencies on various objects. So once it's enabled, you'll see whatever currencies you've enabled and added. Scenario is you have your corporate office in the United States, but another branch office is in Europe. Your corporate office currency is in US dollars, and your branch office is operating in euro. So that enables these separate offices to operate in their local currency separately. Enabling multi-currency and advanced currency management. There's 4 basic steps. The first would be to enable multi-currency. You'll do this in the company information tab and setup. And note that this cannot be turned off once it's enabled. So they tell you this a few times in Salesforce. You even see that right there. And it's listed in a lot of the documentation. There's that. The next step would be to add your currencies and exchange rates, and that's done in the manage currency in setup. You'll continue adding currencies and conversion rates for each currency that's supported. So you'll see a screen like this. The next step, when you do go through adding it, you click OK, you'll go back to this screen. I will give you an option to enable advanced currency management. This is not enabled by default. You can set it. You just check that little button right there, or select that little button, and then you'll see this. You'll have to click yes and enable, and it'll give you some information on what dated exchange rates are, and confirm advanced currency management to be set up in your org. From there, in the currency screen, you'll now see a button that says Manage Dated Exchange Rates. It'll give you a little pop-up prompt about what dated exchange rates are. You can check the box to not see this again. And then from there, you'll add your managed dated exchange rates. We'll go over this a little bit more in detail. Some considerations for multi-currency. Again, it can't be disabled. In reporting field-to-field filters is not supported for currency fields like amount. It does support standard and custom objects. It is supported in reporting. Currency in reporting amount and amount converted in reports is based on filters. The exchange rate must be set up and maintained manually. There are app exchange applications that do this automatically. I've never used it, but I believe they are out there. The number of currency decimal places is now managed in Manage Currency. You'll see this here. And that overrides the field customizations for currency fields. Users can specify a personal default currency. The currency of the opportunity will be the personal default. So every time they create an opportunity, they'll use that default. You can also show secondary currency amounts in parentheses. This can be disabled in the Manage Currency section. You'll see here in a little screenshot, there's a couple numbers. The A represents the primary currency, which is typically the default corporate currency. This is something that's set in the custom information. Typically, you already have this set up. That will be usually your first currency, but you can change this in Manage Currencies to a different currency. B will show the user default unless it's been overridden at the record level. Okay. In reports, the primary currency reflects either the default, that's supposed to be down on this row, default corporate currency, or the currency selected for the record. So you'll see that here. In reporting, there is a filter on the reports that you can set to either currency that you have set as active in your org. The secondary currency reflects the personal default currency of the user running the report or the currency specified in the report, like I mentioned. Once a currency is enabled, it cannot be deleted. It can only be inactivated. So if you are testing in your org, only enable currencies that you plan on using. Currency fields will display the currency ISO code before the amount. So instead of $100 with a $sign, you'll see USD 100. And products can have prices in different currencies. So this is a sample of one where it has the euro as well as a US dollar standard price. So why advanced currency management? Without it, you're limited to one exchange rate for each currency. Changing the exchange rate impacts all records, including closed won opportunities. With it, you can set a range of dates for each currency. It could be set up to daily. And so in this example, we have March 1st of 2023. The conversion rate for euro for $1 US is 1.08. If we were to close an opportunity in 5,000 US dollars, it would convert to 5,400 euros. If we have an exchange rate dated for 1 of 2003, and the euro converts to 0.983 instead, if we close and win an opportunity, then our euro would be 4,915 instead. A little bit about advanced currency management. This can be disabled. So I feel like there could be an exam question on that because one can be disabled and one can't be. So it's important to know the difference there. This one can be disabled. So if you enable it and decide not to, you can go back. Each rate is in effect until either the end of time or the day before the next start date for that currency. So here you'll see a screenshot of what it looks like when you set a dated range. This one is set to start at 3/26/2023. And then the time between one start date and the next start date is called the exchange rate date range. So this next range, it starts 4/1/2023. Dated exchange rates can be used for opportunities, opportunity products, opportunity product schedules, campaign opportunity fields, opportunity splits, and report related to these objects and fields. Note that they cannot be used in forecasting and currency fields and other objects, or currency fields and other types of reports for those objects. So this is a good distinction between the multi-currency versus advanced currency. This one does not support additional custom objects, account, forecast, whereas you can still have multi-currency on there. It just won't be dated exchange rates. They are also not used when calculating formula fields with a formula return type of currency. Okay, so dated exchange rates are supported on roll-up summary fields between two advanced currency management objects. So you can't filter on opportunity currency fields on the account object. Okay, because this account object is not a data currency supported object, you can't have a roll-up from an opportunity to account. But you can if it's an opportunity line item which support data currency as well as opportunity. Some advanced currency considerations. Campaign opportunity fields use dated exchange rates when calculating the amount in the campaign currency. However, they don't use dated exchange rates when converting those amounts to the user currency. Cross-object formulas always use static conversion rates for currency conversion, and you can't bind Visualforce pages that use the input-output field component to currency fields that have supported advanced currency management. So that's the end of the presentation. I do have a demo set up if you wanted to take a look at that. Don't know how much time we have, but go ahead.
Yeah, you're doing great. Go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead and proceed.
Okay. Some considerations that I'd like to say when you are managing or an admin or implementing multi-currencies, it's important to remember where it's used, so for dated versus managed, just multi-currency, on what objects you're on. So users can select their default, but the company also has its own default. And then depending on what objects it's supported, it will usually use one or the other. So this is Bob Jones. He is a user in Europe, and he is using Euro. And so when he creates an opportunity, his default in Euro. It's not actually something he has to set on the opportunity. It is set for him. So products can be pulled, and products that have, say, USD will be converting into euros, and he'll see his products here, an amount, and everything in euros. If he were to select an opportunity that someone else created, and say it was a US dollar opportunity, what you would see is the parentheses for the dated, and you can turn this off, where you'll see the default on the left and the user on the right, in parentheses. So it'll convert that $5,000, and then same with any of the currency fields on here. Same for products, again, product line items, things like that do support dated currencies, but objects like account would not. So accounts also have its own currency, so that can play a part. You can set the account's default currency as well. And then impact on reporting, like we've talked about. Actually, I don't know, I saved my opportunity report. But you would say the same things where it converts exchange rates based on either the date, if the object supports it. And then you'll see a currency filter here. Okay, that's the end of my presentation.
Very good. On that report, just a quick question. If you go in and edit that, am I remembering correctly that there's also another amount field that is the exchange rate?
Yes, there is a couple that will say converted
there, yeah,
in parentheses. Okay. So you will see those. Those are supported in report. And you should.
And that converted is it converted to the amount that you've selected in the bottom corner, or is it to our corporate default?
I believe it's to the filter.
Okay.
Let's try it. Yeah, so this will convert everything to euro, so it's standard.
No, awesome.
And if I change that, it likely will be USD.
Nice. Cool. Very good. There's a ton of stuff that you have on that slide deck, and I'm assuming you'll share that up on our share folder.
It's already there.
Yep. Okay, perfect. If you could go back to the very first consideration slide that you had, if it's still available. Keep in mind that this is a Sales Cloud consultant exam. And so you're going to get hit with questions that's going to cause you to want to understand all of these different considerations. And you had like probably 5 or 6 different consideration slides here. So that you're going to see scenario-based questions along the lines of You've got a customer who works out of multiple countries, and they're considering using multi-currencies. How would you advise that customer on expectations or things along that line? You're going to get questions along that type of line, and you're going to need to understand the impact of turning on something like multi-currency and how the behavior that's going to have within your org. And so you've laid this out so nicely with all of these considerations. So it's one thing to read these items. It's a whole nother issue to actually experience it within an org. So some of these, if you read through these and you're thinking, I have no idea what she's talking about with this bullet point, then you probably need to get into a sandbox org or dev org and play around with this concept or the model so that you understand the impact that this has. There's just so many interesting nuances, even with the way that it plays in with our price books. Big impact even on that side of it. So play around with this one for sure. A fantastic job. You covered it really, really well. Any specific questions anybody has on this topic? Yeah, Meredith, we probably all have to study this one.
This one's an interesting topic too. I've had a company that did multi-currencies, and we had regions all over APAC, EMEA, and a lot of the nuances. And I left it to the presentation because I mean, there's so many reports and things that get pretty granular, where your accounting is going to want to make sure the numbers match, and so it's important to know that a dated currency might not be used on a custom object or something, and so the numbers will be a little off because of that difference. And usually, like for the exchange rates, there are websites you can grab them, but typically going to come from like finance department or something, so that everyone's kind of using the same and using the same schedule. So
yeah. I can't think of any customer that I've had where I've actually just turned on multi-currency and not gone to the advanced management, because the standard exchange rate, when you just have that one exchange rate, if I'm looking at a report and maybe it's a sales report, and maybe I've got a copy of one from a month ago, and my numbers aren't going to jive. They're going to be different if I'm not using a dated exchange rate, because everything is calculated now around that one rate. And if it goes up or down, then all of my numbers are going up and down along with it, even all of the historical information. So I find that to be kind of a no. Most clients would know that can't happen. And I tend to agree with that. I think the advanced, it's a little more complicated. It's more maintenance for the admin, but at least your numbers stay consistent over time. It makes sense to me why you can't do forecasting with that as well, because you don't know what the future dollar is going to be worth. So, some of this is common sense. You just have to kind of think about it. I don't want to scare you away from with multi-currency, but do get in it, do understand the nuances of it and how it plays. And then I think you'll be fine. Fantastic job again, Joyce. That was awesome. Anybody else have questions on this one? Anybody play with multi-currency? Have you used it within your orgs? Familiar with it? Typically is what I normally run into. the one thing, Julie, for your benefit, one of our customers that deal with fuel, they use multi-currency because they need to have more than 2 decimal points in currency. And so while it's still it can be a single currency. It could be that you need more than 2 decimals with your currency. And that's another good use case for using multiple currency. All right, Dean, my friend, are you ready? Territory management.
Ooh, well, I'm glad that you're recording this, but let me just set you all up that what I'm going to be sharing with you is very minimal. And don't make my mistake, because I took this concept for granted, and once I pulled it up, I was like, oh my goodness, I don't have as much time as I thought I would. So this is definitely something I would truly encourage everyone to make sure you spend time, not just on Trailhead, but if you can get focus on Force, which is part of what I'm going to be showing you all, a few clips of it, please spend time on this. This is very, very weighty. There's a lot of stuff in this, okay? I would take my video off so that I can share my screen. All right. So the objective for territory management is under the application of product knowledge, and discuss the capabilities, use cases, and design consideration for additional features such as territory management and forecasting. I'm going to just spend the few time that I was able to get this done on just mostly on territory management, and that alone is heavy all by itself. So territory management, what I pulled out from Trailhead on this, it says the bedrock of basically helping. If you have a sales team, you're basically trying to divide them up into divide work into different sales teams, but making sure that everyone has the right amount of quota. So territory management actually helps in that case. It says the bedrock of happy, high-performing teams. It takes out teams are divided and who gets what leads. You see, a lot of times, I don't know if you've been to sales companies, they go through the simple route of just divvying up things based off of regions. And sometimes you can have a region, say Oklahoma, that might not have enough leads compared to if you go to San Francisco or California. You see, and that might not be fair for those sales team members. So territory management allows you to do that, and it says it focus more on your company's go-to-market strategy and your overall business goals. And then there are a few ready-made ways to divide this, but it's always best to use multiple factors. And the factors is based off of your number of companies, geography, size of your companies, propensity to buy, industry. Now, if I'm talking too fast, feel free to slow me down. I've been told that sometimes I get too excited, and this my cool, awesome accent can throw some people off. So just throw your hands up and say, slow down, Mr. D, and I'll do just that. All right. Territory planning, the Salesforce way. Okay. These are the things that Salesforce says that you should consider whenever you're trying to do this territory planning. You start your planning early, plan for growth, and all these things are pulled up again from Trailhead. So you probably will see this when you're doing your Trailhead exam, but I'm telling you again, please don't depend on that. There's a whole lot more, especially when you get into resources like Focus on Force and things of that nature. Okay. So I'll just leave you to read that. Start planning early, plan for growth, avoid disruption, lessen RAM time. You want to lead with data. You want to be fair, and you always want to adjust. Those are the things that you want to take into serious consideration whenever you're trying to do this territory planning management, okay? Now this is where it really gets exciting, okay? Okay, Salesforce now provides this amazing tool called the Salesforce Enterprise Territory Management System, okay? It's a cool way. What it does, it provides a robust and time-efficient way. That's Salesforce for you. That's Salesforce stand, right? And It allows you to model your territories better, create this thing that we're going to talk about called territory hierarchy, define assignment rules, and promote team selling. Now, let's talk about this enterprise territory management for just 1 minute. There are steps, and these steps have babies. When I say babies, there are multiple layers on each of these steps. So at the high level, step one in doing enterprise territory management is to build the territory. Okay. Step two, assign users to territories, and then you guys can read this as we go. And again, this is something that you want to make sure that you do before you can even try to set up a territory hierarchy. Just like Terry said earlier, I would encourage everyone to get a dev org, right? And a sandbox to spend a lot of time on this, because all I'm going to be doing is just giving you snapshots from what I pulled up from Focus on Force, but you want to make sure you spend time so you understand how to do this step by step. For example, see my next slide here says, how do you create a territory model? Okay. Navigate to the setup menu. Okay. I would have loved to do that, but I've not had time to do that yet on my own, so I wouldn't want to take that risk right now. But this is just a little snapshot, right? Navigate into setup menu, and it says territory models can be cloned, right? From something called the planning state, right? One thing that I wanted to emphasize here is when you create just like you need an org chart in business, territories also need hierarchies, okay? So when you create a territory model, you also want to create a territory hierarchy. For example, you can create a master. Okay, this is creating territory hierarchies, okay? So let's keep on going for a minute. Let's finish territory model for me. Building and activating a territory model. You create territory types, create territory models, create territories, and then you are now assign accounts. Preview accounts, activate models, assign users. Again, these are just steps in having to build and activate a territory model. Now, the territory hierarchy shows a model's territory structure. Okay, it has a hierarchy view, which can be a list view or tree view. That's new. I've not heard of tree view before, so that's something that you want to make sure you go play around with. You know, we have Kanbans and all those things, but there's something called tree view. Territories can be created, edited, and deleted from hierarchy, and then there are also parent hierarchies. Okay. Parent hierarchies, and then assignment rules can be run from all territories using the run assignment rule button, opportunity filter, and then territory model can be activated or archived from the hierarchy. So again, when you create a territory model, you want to also make sure you have a territory hierarchy. Navigating to the hierarchy within a territory model. A territory hierarchy can be viewed once a territory model has been created. Okay. And then I try to jump into forecasting, but I would just stop right here because I did not have time to go into all of this, just to be very honest with you, so that we just spend the rest of our time learning from experts in Terry and Julie, so that, again, my advice is make sure that you spend a lot of time on this one section and don't take it for granted, and learn from my mistake from this study. Thank you, guys.
All right, very good. Keep your slides up there if you don't mind, D.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, all good. Territory hierarchy, it looks and feels a lot like role hierarchy. So when you see the two, you're going to semi be confused by the fact that it's almost identical in how it functions. So the tree view, D, that you're referencing, all that is the same view that you would normally see within in a role hierarchy where you see the different relationships. That's all that's referring to. And so role hierarchy, territory hierarchy, very similar in how they are structured. The jump over to your hierarchy screen, that I think it was the next screen that you had, where it showed us at least a little bit of a picture.
That one?
Okay. Yeah, no, we don't. That's good. But when you click that view hierarchy, one of the things that and I'm going from memory here, so you double check me on this, but with a hierarchy, you have to have somebody responsible for that area, if I am remembering right. And if you're familiar with territory management, please correct me if I'm misspeaking on that. But I think that's one of the nuances is that it does have to have a manager. So you, in essence, you can't have a child hierarchy be associated to another hierarchy that doesn't have anybody in it. It has to be associated to somebody. The part of the reason for that is, I might be confusing this with forecasting hierarchy as well, because you've got hierarchy on your forecasts as well and this all gets rolled together and highly confusing. So double check me on that one. I could be wrong. But keep in mind, you've got all three of these concepts have hierarchies associated with them. The model can be enabled and disabled, as Dee mentioned. And the value of that is, let's say I'm setting up a new territory or a new model. Maybe I'm redistributing my assignments. And so I've got the ability to model that all out. And then once I'm happy with the way that it looks, I can then enable it and then or disable the previous one, enable the new territory. And so that's also something that's kind of a different concept here with territories. Territories also allow you to manage security. So you can now do security, org-wide security, so think sharing rules based off of territories. That again adds another new level of complexity to this whole model. Trying to think if there's anything else that's kind of sticks out. Anybody used territory management before? It can speak to some of the nuances of it.
No, but I did follow a rabbit hole down some of when I was taking the trailhead, and it would be like, okay, you can reference like this sales, something that seemed totally unrelated about sales processes and then how to keep like salespeople happy. And so like 6 or 7 different modules down, they were talking about ways to set up, like when that plan stage of the territory management, different questions to ask. I thought that was really interesting. If I can go back and find the link, I'll put it in the Slack, but it was talking about ways to engage your sales and sales management so you don't have to adjust the territories as often so that you can avoid disruption. I thought it was a pretty good course.
Interesting. Yeah, that is fascinating. Good. The concept of territories, you understand the reason why somebody would leverage territories? I assume most, if you're familiar with sales at all, you're kind of familiar with the concept of a territory, sales territory.
That was part of the org that had like 5 different ownership fields that were just really, really difficult to manage. And we switched over to the territory model. And something that I didn't appreciate is how drastically it would change all of our reporting. Because you couldn't just use the like user lookup field or the my open opportunities. It was, my team's
my territory.
Yeah, my territory's opportunities, or even my team's territory's opportunities if you're going through the role hierarchy. So if you're having a hard time understanding that, like running some reports and seeing how that looks like makes it pretty clear.
This is 100%. This is extraordinarily disruptive within your orgs. It's one that you don't turn this on in production unless you've turned it on in the sandbox and played with it. For the very reasons there that were just mentioned, it's pretty significant, and you can't turn this thing back off. Now you can go down to a single territory where everything's just one again, but it still hangs out in your org, and the ramifications are pretty significant. So I personally, when a customer wants to go this way, I do my best to try not to, if I can avoid it. There are use cases though where this absolutely makes 100% sense. And so it's not one that I'm afraid to turn on. It's just one that I know the impact that it makes. And so I would turn on multi-currency way before I'd ever turn on something like territories. Again, it's not that it's not a good tool. It is, but the ramifications of it is pretty significant. And so you want to make sure that it is the right move. Absolutely do this in a sandbox first, or in a Trailhead org, or wherever you have something there to play with. It's a big, this one's a big deal. You will absolutely see questions on this in the exam. So as I mentioned before, you're going to want to play with this concept or this model, and be familiar with all of kind of the tentacles that play. So similar to, and I'd be curious, Dee, if Focus on Force has something similar to what we saw as far as considerations for turning on territory management. That would, if you can find any information around that concept. Again, this is a consultant level exam, so you're advising your customers on the impact of doing something like this. You're going to want to understand the considerations around it. Any questions on this topic? Very good. So let me stop recording. Well, before I stop recording, any questions in general on any of our topics that we've had so far? How many of you are actually studying and going through these topics as well on a weekly basis, not just waiting for a presentation to learn it? Are you studying along with everybody? Cecilia, you're shaking your head. Yes, good. That's the best approach with these study groups, is to follow along, even if you're not presenting. Try to keep pace with what we're studying for this week or for the next week. That just is going to make this all come together so much easier for you, and you're not cramming last minute then when you're ready to take the exam. Another thing that I typically will do around this time is I'll ask, has anybody actually scheduled this exam? Let's see, Meredith, your comment. Good. Any of you planning to schedule the exam closer toward when we get to the end? You can raise your hand or unmute.
Yeah, I've blocked off some potential times on my calendar for the week after we finish, although I might do the week after that, but
yeah, good. I recommend that you get it on the schedule, that you actually commit to it. Even if you have to postpone it or push it back, at least it keeps it front and center for you, so that you know that, hey, I'm going to do this. It's real as soon as you get it scheduled. There's times where I'll do that because for me personally, it means I'm committed to doing it, and it forces me into the habit of studying for it, and it's not coming up as a surprise, and I'm not having to cram as much last minute. So if you're similar to that, think about getting this on the schedule. I've had people go through these study groups and they still haven't taken the exams for the topics. And it's like, why? You put all the effort into it. You need to take advantage of getting the certification as well. Awesome. Any questions or anything I can help you with on this journey so far? You guys are extraordinarily quiet today.